Okay then, so welcome everyone to this 1-hour webinar on the Swing Catalyst software. The purpose of this webinar is to cover some basic stuff in the software, probably basic to us, but it can seem a bit complicated to others, so we'll just take you through them. And if you have questions, please ask them under Q&A, and Tim will forward them to me, because I'll go into sharing my screen mode, so I won't be able to see the questions actually. So Tim will just forward them, and we'll tackle them as we go. And yeah, feel free to ask anything about what we're talking about. So we're going to talk about different options for choosing the correct video encoder. This could make the encoding a lot faster. We're going to talk about quick buffering, so it'll get you back to recording swings faster than you have without enabling it. We're going to talk about the different launch monitor connections, show you how to set up your email, and we're going to dig into different camera settings. I know this is a headache for a lot of people, and we'll show you how we do it. We're going to look at the 3 different capture options, such as manual trigger, microphone, and large monitor. We'll look at filtering swings in the Explorer. We'll look at record lesson and how to export take files. We'll look at how we would analyze a swing using drawing tools and bookmarks. And at the end, we'll look at comparing swings. So I guess I'll just try and share my screen. Hold on. Can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to dig in here. I'm going to go to video and capture. And up here you see we have something called video encoding. You can choose the top one, which is the integrated graphics units in the microprocessor on your computer. If you have purchased a computer on our recommendations, you should have an NVIDIA GPU in there. And if you have an Intel processor, you can also use the Intel QuickSync to do this. We have something here, question pops up, which one should I choose? So if you click this and you run the performance test, this will show you what your hardware can do. So I have a pretty good NVIDIA card in this PC, or it's the 2060. It has 8 gigs of RAM, I think. And this test shows us that by choosing the NVIDIA for encoding, I will have video encoding a lot faster. So if you look at the spinning wheel after you do recording, this will go a lot faster. So run this test and select the appropriate one to boost your performance here. Any questions on this part, Tim?
No questions yet.
So when I go and either see a client or log in, this is one of the first things I check to optimize their performance, basically. We have something up on the right corner here called enable quick buffering after capture. Now, this makes your session more effective in the sense that after it encodes, it'll go faster into record mode again, so to say. But you have to be careful, because this, like it says, it requires more memory. So I would try this and see if it works. If you're having issues, go ahead and uncheck it again, because like it says, it requires more memory. I have 32 gigabytes of RAM in this computer, so it's doing quite fine in that respect. Do you want to add something there, Tim?
No, this is great. The only other thing would be, after you have chosen which encoding, underneath that there is the advanced. So if the if any of you have more than 2 cameras, you also might want to select and remove the session limit if you have more than 2 cameras. This is a good thing to have in a lot of cases, but not all cases.
Yep. That was fast. All right, so next point here is launch monitor connections. You'll see the ones we support on the right side here. How to set up your launch monitor. I will refer to our support articles. Many of our customers don't know this, but if you go to our website and choose contact support, it takes you to the support site. And I'd say for the good part, 95% of your questions will be answered by just putting into a keyword into the search area there. And if you have any of these launch monitors, just type in a name and it'll take you to the appropriate article and give you a nice guideline on how to set it up. Just make sure that it's ticked off as use as trigger if that's what you're looking for. And as long as it's connected, it's working fine. It won't have not connected behind it. It'll just look like this. For those of you who were clients prior to August 1st, 2018, who also run a TrackMan, make sure you add 1500 in this area to have a better timing of the take. There's some delay with the TrackMan. Again, Tim, do you want to add something on the launch monitor?
No, the only other thing would be that you'd have to have the launch monitor software or it connected. So you have to be having the software running for it to be enabled and connected.
Yeah, for the most part, but not for the Foresight units.
Right.
Those you can just turn on and they'll connect to Swing Catalyst. So the launch monitor, it performs 2 tasks for us. Number 1, it'll trigger the swing. So when you hit a ball, there's a signal from the launch monitor going to the software saying, hey, a hit occurred. And then the software in turn creates a 5-second video file where it's showing 3 seconds before impact and 2 seconds after. Task number 2 is to collect club and ball data, if that's enabled. Ball data will always be there, but you need to enable Foresight, you need to enable club data if you have it on your unit. And I'll show you how that looks in a minute when we start hitting some shots here.
So I did get one question here.
Yep.
It says when you get to manual capture, I'd like to record some swings, drills that do not hit a ball. When using manual capture, how do I get the delay set so I can quickly set up and still get the recording? It seems like it goes so fast I don't capture any of the swing. So do you want to explain manual capture because it records the 5-second video clip?
Yeah, I can jump to capture options right away. So we have 3 options like we just covered the launch monitor. If you do the manual trigger, you have to try and trigger it as close to impact as possible.
The reason for that is because when you click manual trigger, the video goes back 2 seconds forward, 3 seconds to cut the 5-second video clip. So if you click manual trigger and go over to hit the shot, yeah, you will never make it. So that's why we would recommend having a microphone to capture so that even like the brushing of you hitting the mat could potentially trigger or just making a sound when you do make the swing. I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah.
So the manual trigger is really not an option if you're working alone on the system. It's it's a two-man job basically. You'll need one person to trigger it, because like Tim said, you need to trigger it as close to impact as possible. And I don't think even Superman could do that if he was playing golf.
That's right.
But you can use any microphone that plugs into a computer. They're readily available online for $5 and up. And I'll show you, Chris. There's a threshold you have to find. Just go to analyze mode. I go to capture options, and you see this bar here. If I stick it down here and I clap my hands. Ah, sorry, it's not. Oh, it's not picking up. It's probably because I haven't configured it. But I would clap my hands and see how far I can drag it this way before it triggers, because you would like the microphone to trigger the swing when you hit a shot, not when you're talking. That can be a nuisance. So just play around with the clapping and this bar to get it perfectly to match with your unique setup. We already covered the launch monitor, manual trigger, and the mic. Another thing which you need to pay attention to is that if you have launch monitor enabled as the trigger and you do a manual trigger, it will take a good 20 seconds for the video to encode. The reason for this is that since the launch monitor is selected as the trigger, Swing Catalyst will listen for about 20 seconds before it gives up and then goes off to create the video file for you. So if you're in a session and you want to use manual trigger for some time, I would go ahead and unselect use the launch monitor as a trigger. If you do that, it'll still collect the launch monitor data, it just won't trigger by it.
Can you show that within the software? So if you can go into like a live capture and then show them how quickly you can go into the settings to the icon rather than going out of the session again, just to disable the launch monitor. So
it's this button right here. Okay, any more questions regarding this?
No. Question someone has is the GC3 fully integrated now?
No, but it will be soon. Both Swing Catalyst and Foresight are working very hard to having it ready. So it's looking promising. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Okay, so for those of you who coach golf, one of our most popular features is the record lesson. I'm going to show you that later on, but to make your life a lot easier, go to lesson and sharing. Here you can put in a bunch of information about yourself, your academy. You can upload your logo or an image, and you can set up your email account to it. So when you do a voiceover record lesson and you want to send it to a client, it'll hook up with your Gmail and send it through there directly to their email. If you don't have this enabled, you can always download the file from the software, which is also easy, and send it manually as an attachment to an email. We'll cover that in a little bit. To set this up, again, I would refer to our article about this. Just type in email in the search field and it'll take you through it. So that was the email. Now we get to the fun part.
Before we get to the fun part, I did have another question.
Yep.
Question is, can you have the launch monitor and microphone set up simultaneously?
You can, but again, I wouldn't recommend it because, I mean, even though you find a good threshold, the microphone, it can, you drop something or you touch something, it'll trigger due to the sound and it becomes a nuisance. So if you're lucky enough to have a launch monitor you can use as a trigger, I would highly recommend that.
Same here.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit a shot. So this is our test lab and showroom in Norway. I have 4 cameras set up here, but for today I'm just going to use 2. These are our Blackfly S Gigi cams at 300 frames per second. We have about 30,000 lumens in this room, and I'm getting old. My right foot just went to sleep. Check launch monitor up there, maybe. There you go.
Then Carl, you may want to add what club you have as well. A lot of people do miss this as far as the default. But when you have the launch monitor data, it is always nice to add what club, just for filtering reasons and just for data.
Good point. It's a nasty duff, but it'll do the trick. So I could have clicked open recording, but I just waited anyhow. So I'm choosing 2 cameras in the layout, and you can see the image looks quite nice. But look what happens now once we get into transition and closer to the ball. We have a lot of shaft blur, and then that's when people start calling us, you sold us a bad camera. And the lighting condition is super good, the picture looks good, but there is something wrong with the settings here. They're not optimized for this situation. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and go to settings, click cameras. And so the active camera down the line, for instance, and click camera up here. So now we can see that these are the 2 most important parameters, I would say, when looking for a good image. You can see that my exposure time now is at 2,500. The gain is at 0. So what gain does, it adds light to the image, but it also adds noise, like in the form of small grains, I would say. So I would like this to be at below 500 basically to have a good image of shaft and club it and ball at impact. So I'm going to go ahead and just put in 500, and then you can see that the image got darker. So I'm just going to try and find the threshold I want. Yeah, I'm happy with this. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I'm going to head over to the face on right camera. All right, I'll try and push this to 250. Then add gain. All right, okay. Then go back to capture. Now the whole world is going to have a close look at Carl's stuff.
Better you than me.
Yeah, and by the way, if you click the swings down in the stack, gives you a preview of the launch monitor data. I'll go ahead and open this. Now, if I go down to transition, you can see we have a much better view of the club head and the shaft. There's no blur. There's the duff. Great shot. And like if you're in an inside situation, this is something you have to do once because you have complete control of the lighting conditions. But if you're working on a driving range, like a garage bay, and the light shifts a lot during the day, I would figure out the settings that work for any time of the day, basically write them down so I can easily go into the settings and change it to optimize it. Because the sun is such an incredible light source. Outside, I've had the exposure settings down to 0, basically, just due to having so much good sunlight. And sometimes I wish I could go down to below 0, but so yeah, so those are some things I would look at seriously to improve the lighting situation. And like, for instance, here, the settings I choose for the face on camera and down the line camera are different because I can get away with using less exposure down the line just due to how the lights are set up here. So it'll give me a nicer image in the sense I don't have to use as much gain. And like I said, and as you can see, the gain adds some noise to the image. Another thing you can do in settings for cameras is go to filters. And I have enabled, something called sharpening. When I disable it, you see that it's a bit more blurry. Click this, gives me a crisper view. And I can go to denoise, enable that, and play with this bar. And just set it to where I'm happy. Another thing that's quite handy is the gamma. And I recommend going to these settings after you're happy with exposure and gain. Do you want to add something, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, you did a great job demonstrating this. The things that I would say is that with the gamma, I found that in the garage bays, when you have the sunlight shining in, the gamma works really well to getting rid of the shadow look of the individual and highlighting more of the player. Yes. So definitely add the gamma in the garage bay, especially for down the line.
Yeah, that's really good input.
And then as far as under the camera tab, when Carl was showing the exposure and gain, the best image is when you can get the two of them as low as you can. And then everyone's different. A lot of people ask me, what should the settings be? But again, everyone's different. The lighting is different in every location. But as you can see, you do not necessarily need to add more lighting. You can make the adjustments. So that's the biggest question I receive is, how much lighting do we need, or what camera or what lighting should I buy? But just adding or making the adjustments can do a lot.
I guess we could say as a rule of thumb, you can never have enough light indoors. But something is definitely better than nothing, because I've seen so many locations where they had kind of forgotten about the recommendations regarding lights. And obviously they're getting a bad output from the cameras. And you can buy the most expensive camera in the world, but if you don't have the lights to support it, it won't perform. It's as easy as that. And just speak to me or Tim, depending on where you are, and we'll guide you in the right direction regarding lights. You don't have to spend a fortune. That's for sure.
That's
What's hard for us to recommend is when people send us links for lights they found online. Will this work? It's so hard to say because we need to test these lights with the cameras to see if they flicker or not. That seems to be impossible to determine on looking at a spec sheet. It needs to be tested. It's quite random, to be fair.
perfect. I do have a question. Someone would like to see the 4-camera capture. Are you able to enable the 4 cameras and capture a swing, and then showing the how the 4 cameras look within our software? So one thing you saw there, even though 4 cameras were enabled, Carl was able to change the layout from 2 cameras to 4 cameras. So you can still record all 3 or 4 cameras.
I have one of the cameras unplugged. I need to replug it.
So under the layout, you can have the option to view 1, 2, 3, or 4 cameras. And if you have all the cameras enabled, you can only show 2, even though all 4 are recorded. So it's a nice way to dive into the details after the student has left, or if they don't know, because then you can review all 4 camera angles while displaying only 2.
Oh, it's connected nicely. There we go.
Yeah, so as you can see, each of the views, and then the camera angle, the little icon on the upper right-hand corner also shows you which camera angle.
Yeah, by the way, this camera is a wide angle. I don't have the behind of a rhinoceros.
So like I said, yeah, there's the 2 camera angles, even though all 4, and then now there's all 4 cameras.
So in this location, I used a wide angle lens in the ceiling and on the left-hand side, which is an option. Didn't duff it. Pretty good.
Yeah, some people have written that they do have a blurry image, and again, to reduce the shaft blur, you want to reduce the exposure.
Yeah, number one thing is you need to have the exposure down.
Yeah,
and then and depending on your light situation, the gain up. Where was I? All right, so even though I recorded with 4 cameras, I can choose 1, 2, or even 3, depending on what. I mean, if I bring up the information from the launch monitor, oh, that was way left. Or like I have here, the dual motion plate, it gets kind of busy on the left-hand side of the screen, depending on what I'm looking at. So maybe beneficial to pull up 2 or 3 or whatever you're working on. And even if you're working 1 camera, it's quite easy to change the angle. There's a camera icon up on the top right hand corner. Just click this, and I can easily switch to which one I want to look at.
Yeah, since you're in there, Carl, can you show them how you would make you a left-handed player? By going into camera settings? Nope, right to the right, just right where you are, camera settings.
Yeah.
And then you can adjust it. So that's a nice feature if you have a left-handed player and you want to make them right, and vice versa.
Phil Mickelson.
There you go.
Okay, and obviously I can zoom and pan if I want to. This becomes more important in this angle. And while I'm doing this, I think I should also cover the region of interest. And I'll do it for the face on right camera. So the region of interest allows me to get more frames per second out of the camera, but I have to give something up. And I don't know, I'm not sure how far I can get it up, but if I click the region of interest, I bring these two down, and I click play. All right. Zoom to the ball. Go back to camera. Okay, that gave me .700 frames per second. Well, that was too much. Hold on, let me. Cameras. There we go.
Getting a workout today.
So this basically gives me a lot more frames per second to play with at impact, if I'm looking at something particular. You do want to make sure that you go back and change this to the original settings. And I would play around with this so I know what I'm doing before I start doing this, for instance, during a lesson. Because it's, if you haven't done it, it's easy to get lost. So I want to go ahead and put these top ones, put these to max, and then drag these to 0. And then it should be 720 times 540, and we're back at the full view. So basically what the region of interest does, it just takes out a smaller portion of the image, which allows you to encode more frames per second. Any other questions regarding cameras so far?
Nope, we're doing good.
No. And you know, if you purchase Untitled cameras and you follow the guide, you shouldn't have issues. But sometimes I see people forget something in the guide. If I go back to advanced settings and I go to continuous on these modes, you see instantly my frame rate dropped down to 200, which isn't bad, but it should be 300, right? And that's because these three parameters are in continuous mode. So I want to go ahead and put those to off. White balance can be good to just click once and then off. Then you see, boom, I'm back at 300 or 291 in this case. So just pay attention to this if you're not getting enough frames per second. And you can also see that since I allow the exposure to get to continuous, it went up to 4,000, and I have a warning down here. It's limited by exposure values. If I go ahead and pull it back down to where I want it, like around there somewhere, and then pull this back up. Didn't give me any more actually, but yeah. There we go. That's camera settings. Any other questions, Tim? Comments?
If you go to device link towards the bottom there, if you max that out, there you should be able to get more frames now.
Yeah, right. Good catch. Forgot that. So now I got 320 actually, or 319. I'll do that for the same. Yeah, it's at max here.
Again, if anyone has questions, go ahead and write them in the question and answer chat box. We want this to be a little bit interactive as well. So if you have any questions, feel free.
All right, I'm going to move over to filtering swings in the Explorer. So let's find a session. So if you click filter up here, you can select these parameters. I'm going to go ahead and click launch monitor. I would like to look at all swings that carried between 180 and 250 meters. Obviously, there's just the one swing with the driver out in there that gives me that. If I move it down to 0 to 70, didn't hit any mud shots. There you go. So this just makes it easier for you to search for swings in the every player's archive. And you can do the same with spin rates, and you can see that like the sessions and the number of swings in each session will change as I move this bar. And also, if I have both club and ball data, I can play around with the smash factor. I guess I need to work on that part. There we go. There's a few more. And yeah, most people don't know of this option, but it's super nice to have when you're looking for a particular swing or swings or a set of swings. And you can also do this by rating. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Or club. If you are a good student of the software and you select the club you're hitting with, it will be easier to find. You can even use putters. Sport, dance and performance artists, for instance. That's my favorite. This shows you how diverse the software is. It's used for many different sports than just other than golf. Any questions regarding the filtering, Tim, or comments?
Yeah, if they don't have a launch monitor, can you manually input into the filter? But if you don't have a launch monitor, yeah, you won't be able to get the distance smash, and you cannot manually import those. But at the beginning, when Carl was going to hit the shot, he selected the 7-iron, and at least you can use the clubs along with the rating in the filter.
Yep.
But again, this is an advantage. The filter is an advantage definitely if you have launch monitor as well.
All right, so the next point on the agenda is record lesson. Just gonna get rid of this. So it's a box up here that says record lesson. I click that and I start recording. So hello, Carl, I'm gonna analyze your swing. But before you do that, there's something to make your life a lot easier. So I'm just going to go ahead and stop it, cancel the encoding. And that's the bookmarks. So this bookmark says start of takeaway. This one says top of swing, and this one says impact. There are two ways you can set these bookmarks. Number one, you can go ahead and drag and click. So that's when the club starts moving. It's about there. And I'm going to drag this at transition and put this one at impact. That's one way of doing it. I much prefer using the shortcuts. So for the first bookmark, start of takeaway, click Control-1. Top of swing, click Control-2. And then impact Control-3. And now if you click 1, 2, or 3 on the keyboard, it'll toggle between those positions. And this also gives you access to a feature in the data boxes called tempo and rhythm. Let's move this over here. And depending on how you set the bookmarks, it'll give you the total swing duration in terms of milliseconds. It will tell you if it's fast, ideal, or slow. It'll give you a ratio to the rhythm. And I think this is an underrated feature, because if you're working on your own swing or working with a player, paying attention to this over time will be of great value for you as a golfer and for the coach. Because you see tons of examples of the rhythm changing and basically the output of the swing changing with it. So you'll figure out what is a good tempo for you as an individual or for your players. So I recommend paying attention to this as well. Okay, back to record lesson. So I click record. So, hello, Carl. We're going to look at your swing today. And I'm going to draw some lines for you. So now I'm going to go ahead and click pause. That pauses the recording, but it allows me to spend some time drawing. There's something I'm looking at, for instance. And so I'm going to look at your swing here. Your plane is flat as usual, nothing changed there. You're a bit late at impact. Click pause again. Bring this back. Sway figure. Go ahead and click pause again. And if I'm happy, I'll click stop. The rest lesson will be processed. And it gives you a preview of it before you send it to anyone. And by the way, for this to work, you obviously need a microphone to be enabled, or for the voiceover to work, that is. You can still do a record lesson without the voice, but I click record. There you go. Hello, Carl. And please notice that now the mouse cursor is surrounded by a huge yellow circle, which makes it easier for the viewer to follow your lead. With your swing today, so you can see that I'm going to draw some lines for you. So now I'm going to go ahead and click pause. Look at your. So you can see that the lines magically appeared because I clicked pause and took the time to draw them. The reason why we do this is to save time. I mean, you can do a long lesson if you want to, but if you keep it below 2 minutes, it'll save space on your email account and also the client's email account. And certainly hitting pause and then drawing stuff helps you in that regard. Swinging here, plane is flat as usual, nothing changed there. Late at impact. Again, click pause again, stuff appears. All right, so if I'm happy with the swing, I'm going to send it to my student. I have 4 options. I can save it to disk, which allows me to send it manually later. I can click send by email. If I have my email account enabled, and I'm just punching the student's email address, and I can, choose my own subject, and I can write a small message for the student to see. Obviously, save to disk, just save it under a folder of your choosing. You can share it on a YouTube link, public or not listed. It's up to you. Or if your student, if he, for instance, has the Swing Catalyst app, he automatically has a Swing Catalyst online user. So, and I'm not logged in here because this is the test lab, but if I'm logged in, I can search for the user, easily find him and send it to him or upload it. He'll have, or she will have a notification in their app saying there's a new message. Download the Swing and have a look at it. And that you can look at this on both iOS and Android. If they have the Swing Catalyst software at home and they're logged in, they'll get a notification in the software and they can open it there. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but the format is MPEG-4, which enables you to open it on pretty much any device, iPad, phones, or computers.
Correct.
Yep. So any questions about this feature?
Nothing yet.
All right, we're doing good. We have the last topic, which is comparing swings.
As you're exiting out of that, I would just say in regards to the lesson recording, it doesn't have to be specifically with the Swing Catalyst software. As it's a screencast, you can pull up your website, you can pull up anything that's displayed on that screen that can be added to the video.
Yeah, good point. All right, so if I forgot to do any of this, but I still created the record lesson, and I go to Explorer, it's still here. So I didn't lose it. It's automatically stored in the Swing Catalyst software. So I can go ahead and open it and then send it. So don't panic, it's automatically saved. Oh, I almost forgot. If I want to export this raw file, like meaning that if I want to send it to a person with the Swing Catalyst software with all the data, so he will basically be able to open this exact swing with the exact data I'm looking at, and they can play it back and forth like this, look at pressure, look at forces, look at the swing. I can, for instance, right-click the swing. I can click export or hover over export, and I can choose export the recording as a TIFF file, or I could export the stack as a TIFF file. Now the stack, that's all the swings you see on the bottom. So if I did a session of 50 swings, there would be 50 swings in this stack that would then be in turn exported. I wouldn't recommend doing that because each file is between 8 and 12 megabytes. So select carefully which files you want to export. But you can also record them as raw data files. Meaning if you have a scientist that wants to look at your swing and your numbers, that's what you send them, if we can understand it. I can't. I prefer to look at this. There's another way of doing this as well. If I go in the Explorer, select this swing, and then I click Export up here, or Upload. And I can upload a TIFF file directly to another a person's account of Swing Catalyst, basically. Or I can choose Export. And then I can even just do this, drag and drop. And then click Export and export it to which folder of my choosing on the computer. Was that good, Tim?
Excellent. Yes.
All right, so comparing swings, I can do like I did now. Go to the Explorer. You see on the bottom, drop recording to open it in viewport A, and there's another one that says viewport B. I'm just going to go ahead and drag this swing, and I can, I can choose Lucas Glover, and then click open. And there we go. So if I focus on video, I can again go to the layout, and I can choose one camera and then toggle the view if I want to. Make us, or one of us, left-handed, and keep it at 2 cameras. And you can see that one of these swings is not, properly set. Okay, I'm going to set it top swing. Oh, this is the blurry one. Oh, okay. So that's the point. So even if you're looking at swings recorded in the same session with the same guy or same girl, you'll have small differences in terms of timing. And certainly if you're looking at me against Lucas Glover, you'll see difference in timing. Now, if you look at this symbol right here, I click it, go to start of takeaway. I can go to the top of swing, or I can go to the impact position. And then I can scroll the mouse from here, or top of swing. And again, I can go to different layouts. I can go to 1 camera, 2 cameras, and I can bring up the data if I have. And I can choose all the data boxes I have available. I can choose launch monitor. I can choose if I have plates, different forces or pressure. But you can, as of now, you can only select 2 of them at one time to compare. And you can obviously also pull this up while you're doing a record lesson. There's nothing stopping you from that. The other compare mode we have, which is quite cool, and it's called video overlay. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect one of them, and then drag the other person so that they match up in size. And then I can move this bar to highlight one or the other. I mean, I guess it's fun to compare yourself to a tour player, but it's really beneficial to compare the same player over time to see what's going on. Almost looks like I'm at TPC Sawgrass, Tim. Almost.
1 foot in Sawgrass right now.
Anything to add under compare swings? Oh, do we have more questions? Because I've covered all the topics we set up now. So,
yeah, let's see here. So yeah, I've been answering some questions. I mean, our timing is very good. We're right on time. Tour swings, where can you get tour swings?
I will show you.
So the tour swings that we have, they are signed off by the professionals. We have a large majority of swings we have for our own research, but the ones we have on our website are only those that they have signed off, just because it does give you the launch monitor data, the view from face on down the line. It also gives you the pressure data and all the force data.
Sorry, are you seeing my screen now, or are you seeing Swing Catalyst still?
Still seeing Swing Catalyst. So yeah, you can go into swingcatalyst.com, go under shop, and you can see.
I'll share. Share again.
And
You see
there's
that,
there you go.
right? So I go to the website and I click shop and allow cookies, Tor swings. There you go.
And then there's a question if you could just kind of quickly go through the different data boxes again.
Of course.
There's a question how to review the, how we read the graphs. I think the graphs we may have to take on another webinar or another session workshop.
Yeah, but I can cover the usual suspects, I guess. I'll go to single recording. So, and that's when these views come in handy. So, but just single recording, I have the most used setup, meaning I have cameras on the left and then I have the data boxes on the right. And obviously the cameras occupy most of the space. I can click data centric. It gives me 2 data boxes with the video. And if I look at detailed data, then I can have a closer look at the pressure.
And do show that you can change the data box as well.
Yeah. So now, right now I'm looking at the pressure. If I want to look at the horizontal force, I can do that in a larger view. But I'll just go back to the single recording. So this information is coming from the balance plate on top. Measures pressure perpendicular to the ground. Now, what a good number is very individual. So I'm not going to say 67% on the lead foot at impact is good, and anybody should try and copy it. For that, you would need to at least do a leg dominance test and look at the different parameters there. We are launching a new set of videos with Dr. Scott we shot here in Trondheim a couple of weeks back, which will take you through 2 different leg dominance tests and also how you can work with the different forces. So if we look at the purple graph, this is the horizontal force. And if I go to one camera and do face on right, so when this force is at max, it means I'm pushing this way and the ground is pushing back at me that way. When this force gets to negative, the opposite happens, obviously. I'm pushing this way to stop from falling over and the ground is pushing me back. Torque is a measurement of how much I move the plate from this very center of it. And that's my feet going in opposite direction. Think of like you're twisting off a cork of a bottle. And the vertical force is basically the measurements of how much force I'm putting into the ground and how much force the ground is pushing me back up with. And these are displayed in percentages. So when it says I'm using 6% of my horizontal force here, it tells me that I'm using 6% of my body mass. Okay, but it also displays in Newton. And on each data box, you have something called info you can click, and it gives you a short intro to what you're looking at, basically. Again, now, what is a good number? It's highly individual. And this is certainly we'll have to cover in a different webinar, because that's walking down the old rabbit hole there. We could talk about that for days, probably. But stay tuned for the videos we shot with Scott, because they will be short and very, very explanatory, and I think interesting for most guys, even experienced users. Yeah, and obviously you can choose a lot of different data boxes depending on what type of hardware you have connected. Here we have our new flagship, the dual motion plate, so I can choose everything that's available. I can even choose individual forces for each foot, both in horizontal, vertical, and we have something new, the toe heel, which is pretty much zeroed out on a single plate, but on a dual plate, you'll see a lot more going on each foot, and that's your feet pushing in opposite directions. So there, you almost had me started there, but I'm going to stop now.
Yeah, some questions I had in regards to the tour swing still. The tour swings do not come with the software. Those are sold individually. The price is there, and that's per swing, because it does include so much data. And also with the contract we have with the tour player, that they do make a commission from each sale as well. So that answers your question. But yeah, we're a little bit past the hour. But if anyone has any quick questions, otherwise I think we'll sign off, and we'll looking to reschedule another one shortly again.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that everyone can just reach out to myself or Carl. So tim@swingkettles.com or carl@swingkettles.com. Any other questions? Otherwise, Carl, you can take it from here.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, this is recorded and we'll do some editing, obviously, but I think we'll post it on our Vimeo account for people to review, revisit, and for the guys who missed it. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you learned something. And like Tim said, if you have any other questions, feel free to email us and we'll answer you as soon as we can.